Christopher Nolan has directed some of the most successful and influential films of the last 3 decades. But have you ever wondered how each of his movies actually performed at the box office? Not just their final totals, but day by day. In this video, we're tracking the complete box office journey of every Christopher Nolan film, from his very first independent feature to his latest blockbuster. And with The Odyssey set to release soon, this is the perfect moment to look back at the remarkable evolution of one of modern cinema's most celebrated directors. Before Christopher Nolan became one of the biggest names in Hollywood, he was simply an independent filmmaker with an ambitious vision and a unique way of telling stories. Today, his name itself has become a brand. Audiences don't just watch a Christopher Nolan film because of the actors or the genre. They watch it because it is a Christopher Nolan film. Rather than focus only on the final worldwide collections, this chart tells a much more interesting story. It shows how each film performed day after day, revealing which movies exploded right from their opening weekend and which ones slowly built momentum through strong word of mouth. Christopher Nolan's journey began with Following, a small independent film made on an extremely limited budget. It was never expected to become a commercial success, but it introduced the filmmaking style that would later define his career. Non-linear storytelling, mystery, and intelligent narratives were already becoming his signature. While the box office numbers were modest, the film earned something much more valuable: recognition. That recognition led to Memento, the film that truly announced Christopher Nolan to the world. Its unconventional storytelling immediately captured audiences and critics alike. It proved that a complex narrative could also find commercial success, and suddenly Nolan was no longer just an independent filmmaker. He was a director that Hollywood wanted to invest in. His next film, Insomnia, marked his first major studio production. Working with legendary actors like Al Pacino and Robin Williams, Nolan demonstrated that he could handle larger productions without losing the storytelling style that made him unique. The film performed well commercially and further strengthened his reputation as one of the industry's most promising directors. Everything changed when Nolan entered the world of superheroes with Batman Begins. At the time, Batman was a franchise that desperately needed a fresh start. But instead of focusing only on spectacle, Nolan grounded the character in realism and psychology. The film didn't rely solely on an enormous opening weekend. Instead, positive reviews and audience appreciation kept people coming back to theaters, turning it into a strong commercial success and laying the foundation for one of cinema's greatest trilogies. Between the Batman films came The Prestige, a psychological thriller about two rival magicians. Although it didn't reach the same commercial heights as some of Nolan's other films, it became a favorite among fans and critics. Over the years, it has gained a reputation as one of his most underrated works, proving once again that Nolan was willing to prioritize storytelling over chasing easy box office success. Then came the film that changed everything, The Dark Knight. This wasn't just another superhero movie. It became a cultural phenomenon. Heath Ledger's unforgettable performance as the Joker, overwhelming critical acclaim, and extraordinary audience excitement combined to create one of the biggest theatrical events in modern cinema. It shattered expectations and demonstrated that superhero films could be both commercially dominant and artistically respected. Watching its box office curve climb so rapidly reminds us just how massive this moment was. The Dark Knight Rises carried the enormous responsibility of concluding the trilogy. Expectations couldn't have been higher, yet the film delivered another spectacular theatrical run. By the time the trilogy ended, Christopher Nolan had transformed Batman into one of the most successful franchises in film history, and had firmly established himself among Hollywood's elite directors. What makes Nolan's career especially fascinating is that his biggest successes aren't limited to established franchises. He proved that original ideas could become global blockbusters as well. Inception is perhaps the best example of that achievement. a science fiction film built around dreams, layered realities, and complex storytelling, somehow became one of the biggest box office successes of its year. Audiences returned to theaters multiple times, discussing theories and debating the ending long after watching it. That strong word of mouth helped the film maintain an exceptional theatrical run and demonstrated that originality could compete with the biggest franchises in the industry. Then came Interstellar, an emotional science fiction epic that explored space, time, love, and survival. While critical opinions were initially divided, audiences embraced the film with incredible passion. Over the years, its popularity has only continued to grow, and today many consider it one of Christopher Nolan's greatest achievements. Its theatrical performance reflected that lasting connection with audiences around the world. With Dunkirk, Nolan turned his attention to history, telling the story of one of World War II's most remarkable evacuations. Despite being a war film with relatively little traditional dialogue, it captivated audiences worldwide through immersive filmmaking and breathtaking visuals. Once again, Nolan demonstrated that almost any genre could become a major commercial success when supported by exceptional execution. Then came one of the most unusual chapters in modern box office history. Tenet was released during the global pandemic, when theaters across much of the world were either closed or operating under severe restrictions. Because of those extraordinary circumstances, its box office performance can never be compared fairly with Nolan's previous films. Even so, the film became a symbol of the industry's determination to bring audiences back to theaters during an incredibly difficult period. Just when people wondered whether theatrical cinema had permanently changed, Christopher Nolan returned with Oppenheimer. Released on the same day as Barbie, what many expected to become a direct competition instead evolved into one of the greatest marketing phenomena in film history. The internet embraced the idea of watching both films together, creating the global event known as Barbenheimer. Rather than hurting each other's performance, both films benefited from the unprecedented excitement. Oppenheimer continued to gain momentum through extraordinary reviews, powerful audience reception, repeat viewings, and months of awards buzz. Week after week, it kept adding to its worldwide total, eventually becoming the highest-grossing film of Christopher Nolan's career. More importantly, it proved that a 3-hour historical drama centered around theoretical physics and political conflict could become a worldwide blockbuster in an era dominated by franchises and superheroes. Looking across this entire journey, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Christopher Nolan's films are rarely defined only by massive opening weekends. Instead, so many of them continue attracting audiences for weeks through strong word of mouth. People don't simply watch a Nolan film, they recommend it, discuss it, debate it, and often return to experience it again. That ability to sustain audience interest over a long theatrical run has become one of the defining characteristics of his career. From the modest beginnings of Following to the worldwide success of Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's box office journey reflects much more than increasing revenue. It tells the story of a filmmaker who earned the trust of audiences, one film at a time, constantly challenging expectations while delivering unforgettable cinematic experiences. Few directors have managed to build a career where original storytelling is treated as a global event, and even fewer have maintained that level of consistency for so many years. Now, the next chapter is about to begin with the Odyssey. Expectations are already enormous, and the question is no longer whether audiences will show up. The real question is whether Christopher Nolan can once again raise the bar and create another defining moment in cinema history. If you enjoyed watching Christopher Nolan's complete box office journey, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Decoding the Numbers. And let me know in the comments which Christopher Nolan film is your personal favorite and where you think the Odyssey will eventually finish on this chart.